Okay, so this is my review of Alien Earth. I've been enjoying this series a great deal, and I've waited to watch it several times in order to do this review. I know other people put reviews out right away. A lot of credit to them. They're doing awesome. So I'm doing my way. I don't do everything like other people do. So anyway, this is the series. It started Alien Earth. It's 8 episodes. It's on Disney. I have Disney Plus and or Hulu, right? I do through Disney Plus. You can do it through Hulu. So Alien Earth falls within the whole Alien universe or Alien verse, if you will. And it's it's kind of a precursor of events that occurred in the other Alien movies. So it's supposed to give you some context, but with all these different Alien franchises, well, the Alien franchise is the franchise in general, but all the other movies that come out of it and shows, etc., they keep on occluding the true nature of the history of the alien, or they actually confuse it, if I should say. It would be a better word there. They make it more confusing for the viewer because we're not so sure where everything started, when it started. Like, for instance, in some movies like Prometheus and the follow-up to Prometheus Covenant, you have like David, the android, creating everything. And then you have this movie, and then you also have, excuse me, the Romulus that had almost a different version of how the alien species came about, and you had the android, and that one was doing his work on the alien, and here now we see androids and some corporations experimenting with aliens again. So it's really hard to understand what's the genesis of the alien. However, I think this show does a great job in trying to create some clarity, certainly in creating new opportunities for our understanding the origins of the alien, or of the xenomorph, as it's called. The alien is the primary alien is the xenomorph. So let's go through this a little bit. Okay, so here's a list of the characters. Wendy is the main character. She's awesome. And her brother Hermit is also really good actor. If you ever saw The End of the Fucking World, that he was also on Netflix. He was great there too. So that's where I first saw, wow, it looks like can't remember what his name was in that show, but he was really great. The Boy Cavalier, who's the basically the genius that runs the corporation, kind of like an evil genius. So there's a lot of other characters. Dame Sylvia, she's one of the scientists that creates the or helps in the creation of the hybrids, right? And Nibs has a really great role. And here too, I'll talk more about them later. Toodles, Morrow, who's probably other than Wendy, he's probably the second main character in the whole series, at least in season one. Let's see, Smee, one of my favorites. I don't see Toodles. Yeah, here's slightly, yeah. There's Toodles, as I mentioned. So there's and Curly, those are the difference, the other hybrids, right? So Morrow is not, I think he's cybernetic creature. Is that, I think that was the word, or maybe I may be wrong there for the type, but he's basically half human and half, well, not half, oh, has some mechanical parts to him. So, so he's definitely, but he's also human, right? Whereas Kirsch is completely synthetic. There's a picture of Wendy. She's great. She's really, really great. Everything about her, awesome in this show. She's the best character. She ends up being so I'll do a lot of spoilers too. And by the way, since I'm talking, I'll remind you all, please subscribe to my channel. In order to produce these videos, it takes a lot of time, and we don't obviously get paid for doing this. I mean, the ones who are very popular, by getting enough subscribers, they get paid, but I don't. I just do it because I love doing it. But if you subscribe enough, if I get enough subscribers, one day maybe I can get paid with ads. And I'd love that. That would be awesome because I put a lot of work and effort into doing this for you all. And I also have cool videos on skiing in this channel, skiing and statistics. So if you like any of those topics, you could have some fun. Cycling too. Yeah. But she's just great and does an amazing job in this series. So I think she's a good reason to watch it and watching her development because she goes from she was the first of the hybrids, right? So the way it happened was children were terminally ill, and what Boy Cavalier did was he decided, okay, well, we can say he wanted to experiment. He calls them later floor models, but basically he wanted to experiment with putting consciousness from a living human into the synths, creating these hybrids, and that's what they are. So they're basically they've retained their consciousness, and but they now live in these synthetic bodies, and they think they're indestructible and will live forever. And technically, they would live for a long time. I think at one point, her brother, and I'll talk about that in a second, Hermit, says that they can live for like 200 years on their cells, the batteries that they have. But I guess, I mean, like anything, you could probably replace a battery. So these technically they could go on and on and on. I'm sure there'd be mechanical issues, but she goes from just being the first to being potential queen in the second season, like an alien queen, although we're not really sure because she does end up being able to control the aliens, which is really cool. Here's Morrow. This is a scene where he was, I believe, in the original ship, the one that crashed into New Siam. So New Siam is this city in Prodigy Land. Prodigy is the corporation that's run by Boy Cavalier, but he was working for Wayland Yutani. I think it was just Yutani at the time. That's a little confusing because Yutani's the only one that shows up. There's no, but what were they together with Whale? I thought they were. This was the pre-merger, but I'm not 100% sure if somebody could clarify that. But so he was working with Yutani. He's his favorite. He was some poor kid who was a beggar. Um, I can't remember which country it was. I believe it was in Africa, and she found him, and he kind of because he was rescued, he's loyal, completely loyal to her. And in this original mission, they were out to collect specimens from different planets and bring them out. It was a 65-year mission, so they put together with him a lot of these other misfits. He's the only intelligent one, from what I can gather. All these misfits to go out and somehow capture all these aliens, deadly aliens. There's controversy as how a bunch of dumb people, with the exception of Morrow, a bunch of dumb crew members were able to catch all those and contain them. Because if you watch episode 5, you'll see that they're a bunch of bumbling idiots, basically. This is Hermit, Wendy's brother. So Hermit, he unfortunately was not able to be with Wendy when she died. When she died, so he is working on in New Siam when the spaceship crashed, the one containing all the life forms, and Morrow was on that. When it crashed into New Siam, into a building there, he was a rescuer. So he's just like first responder, but a medic, first responder. So he went in to look for to save lives. Wendy was always watching him, right? So she has this ability to follow him, some kind of ability to control cameras because there were a lot of cameras around, I guess, and being able to control to see where he is at all times. And that's how she ended up making her way down in New Siam. She convinced Boy Cavalier that the hybrids could go down and do the search and rescue mission. And for some reason, he agreed, even though each of them was worth I can't remember the price was a $1 billion or $2 billion, how much it costs to build one of them. And one of them gets lost. So in this, we'll talk about that in a second. But she went down to find him and does rescue him. This is Boy Cavalier. I put this picture up because he has this tendency to walk around in bare feet all the time. And this was a scene where he was meeting with Yutani, and they were going to discuss, they were trying to solve the issue that her ship crashed into his New Siam. That's his town. However, he's the one who facilitated the crash. We learned later that in episode 5 that he coerced one of the crew members to sabotage the ship so it would crash. And it crashed into his territory because what he wanted was he wanted the specimens. But he's always sitting in bare feet, and here he's negotiating with Yutani, but not really negotiating because he's kind of dictating terms. So there's these 5 corporations that run the world, and there's a representative of the 5 that's that's mediating this negotiation. And this is him sitting there. At one point, he's actually picking his feet. It shows how disgusting and childish he is because he was supposedly a boy genius who built his first synth when he was 6 years old and just became this, trillionaire, right? So kind of gets things his way all the time. But it's funny how Yutani, she talks to him, you know, he has to behave or he'll lose his dinner. She tells him at one point, I believe, or send him to bed because he's acting like a child. But that this kind of shows him in all his full glory. To me, he's the character I least liked in the whole show. And at the end, he doesn't get killed, but he's still alive. But he ends up being locked up. Or we'll see what happens in the next season. Hirsch is his synthetic, who seems to have very confusing role. At one point, it seemed like he was going to betray Boy Cavalier, but then he actually doesn't. Like for instance, he watches when slightly one of the other synths who is being controlled by Morrow. So Morrow has this ability to infiltrate the hybrid's mind, and I don't know how that is. He was able to infiltrate Slightly's mind and not control him, but communicate with him and try to convince him to do something. So he wanted to convince Slightly to capture, well, basically to infect a human the with a xenomorph, right? So then, with a face hugger. By the way, I do have a face hugger here. Check this out with my little face hugger. My little face hugger. He wanted to infect him with a face hugger, and and then be able to smuggle one of the alien babies off the island because we're on this island. Prodigy has an island so they can isolate everything where their labs are, and he wanted to smuggle it off there. So he had this ability to do so, and for some reason, Kirsch kind of went along with it and allowed it to happen in the background. So it would look like he was having some nefarious plans. My bird in the background had some nefarious plan to to rebel against Boy Cavalier, but in the end, it seems like he was actually working with Boy Cavalier. So he was using Slightly and Smee, Slightly's best friend, and allowing them to take this alien baby who ended up infecting Arthur, uh, Dame's Dame's husband, to the beach where he was going to meet up with Morrow for the transport of the fetus, I guess you'll call it, to Morrow and Yutani. But things went awry, and it seems like Hirsch knew that and was really setting the kids up so he could capture Morrow and the Yutani crew. So it's just really confusing in the case. So here in the end, nearing the end of the movie, the series, the season, sorry, in the last episode, season 1, um, episode 8, here we have all the hybrids in captivity. Again, Toothless was killed by one of the space creatures, which we'll talk about in a second. This is really, really good picture here. Yeah, and so see Wendy's really at the lead, and there's Nibs being nefarious as she is. She ends up being an interesting character, one that would scare the heck out of most people. There she is. So she has a lot of psychological trauma from her childhood, and she's very angry. And I think what happens is that she was able to displace that anger onto those who are trying to hurt her or the other hybrids, which it's interesting. In this case, it might not be bad because she becomes this massive killer and takes pleasure in killing. The one thing that I'm thinking about, and it hasn't been mentioned by a lot of other reviewers. I don't know, maybe they have. I haven't seen all the YouTube reviews, but I think that they're almost being set up to be like superheroes, like a band of superheroes. You have this like violent killer. You have the leader here in Wendy, and these two, Slightly and Smee. I'm not really sure what their roles will be, but he's capable of killing. This guy, Smee, he's like the sweetest of all of them. He's like the best friend, Slightly's best friend, but he's just a real sweet guy. I don't know what his role would be, but they seem like they all go together really, really well. We have, and this is Arthur. This is when he's talking to the two because they're taking him. So he's already been infected, and the face huggers left. It was funny when it dropped off. They had no idea. They had no idea what was going on. They all knew that they were going to transport him. In fact, Morrow said that he was going to survive. Arthur would survive this issue. So that's why they were willing to go with him. The only reason Slightly was enticed to do this, he wasn't really enticed to do it. He was forced to do this was because Morrow threatened to kill Slightly's mother. So he felt obliged to do this. Otherwise, he didn't want his mother to die. But this is when Arthur realizes that, "Hey, wait a minute, there's something weird going on here. These guys are taking me to the beach." And he could tell that they're lying. And he says something about children not knowing how to lie, which is actually not true. That was a mistake in their part because children do know how to lie. That's called theory of mind. They get theory of mind quite early, and they like playing jokes on others. So that's maybe they can't hide the lies really well, but they do know how to lie. This is just an interesting picture here, and I can't remember the names of these two characters, but had very minor roles. In episode one, you see him for a moment, and then in episode five, this guy, he's obsessed with this young woman, and while she's asleep, he just like stares at her all the time at night. So it was kind of interesting. And sometimes writers will throw that into stuff like that into a series, and some people say, well, I've read some or listened to some commentaries that but this just was bizarre that you'd add that on. No, I don't think so. I think sometimes you provide context because you have to build some kind of a sense of what the characters are like and what the background is. So even though it seemed like it was totally out of place, it kind of helped create this atmosphere, like that ship where they were kept bringing in the alien creatures was just a mess. This was just part of the mess, but it was interesting. So speaking of the creatures, let's just look at. So we don't really need to look at a lot of pictures of xenomorphs because you've seen tons of pictures of xenomorphs. But it's interesting here, as I've never seen what we know the face hugger, right? The face hugger sticks this big tube through one's mouth into, I guess, going into one's abdomen and injects something. But we've always wondered what it is, right? We knew it was a fetal xenomorph. Well, here it is. This is the fetal xenomorph. Berkshire takes it out of a face hugger. So that's kind of cool. And here he implants it into Hermit's lung. So Hermit lung was pierced by an adult xenomorph early on, and I think it was in the first episode. And I guess this lung was ruptured, right? So you can see right here. So it looks like a guppy. It's a guppy, I think. It's infiltrating the lung here, and it's gonna of course, release a more mature xenomorph. But that's cool. So I've never seen it before. I like that. That was cool. Some other creatures here. This is the space tick. This is actually a tick. I think it's got it right. It's species 64. I hope I got that right. Space tick. There's this now I'm trying to think of all the names. I think it was D plumbaris. I'm not 100% sure. Some kind of a space plant that actually is like a Venus flytrap, except for it captures larger creatures. Like it cut one of the crew, one of the soldiers and ate her. But the space tick is actually like a tick because if when it starts sucking one's blood, it just it gets enlarges like a tick does. So that's kind of cool. Doesn't it looks uglier though. This is a space fly. Here it's about to kill Toodles. What it does is in it on its planet, it's there's a lack of organic material, so it eats organic stuff. So Toodles was feeding it, and this is when the Teocellus, well, I'll show you in a minute, was controlling the sheep and planned an attack so that Toodles would get stuck in this container with the space fly. I think there's no name for the space fly. It's just called space fly. And this thing injects some kind of acid and then just eats inorganic material. So that's why it was kind of scary. I think Toodles figured this out. They also call him Isaac because he wanted to be named after Isaac. He loved science, so he wanted to be a scientist. So that was really cool. And that's how his downfall because he had an opportunity to bring along. I think her name is Jane. I don't know why I'm blanking out now. One of the other hybrid who was uh, interested in science, but he decided to go alone, and he went alone because he wanted to get favored. He wanted to have more favorable status with Kirsch, who was running the lab. So he went alone, and that unfortunately that hurt him because if he had brought somebody else with him, he might have been able to be saved. Well, this thing ends up digesting him. And here's the star of the show, really, Teocellus. So it's this eyeball octopus hybrid, has multiple irises that kind of can do their thing. But what it's really known for is the ability to infiltrate another body. So here in this picture, sorry if it's scory for some of you, he infiltrated a sheep, right? So what it does is it uses these tentacles to get into the eye. It replaces an eyeball with its own eyeball, and then it can control the rest of the body. Somehow it interacts with the motor neurons in the brain, right? So and can somehow control the whole body. Apparently, it likes to be bipedal, stand up on two legs rather than on four. So one of the interesting parts of the show is that Boy Cavalier wants it to be implanted in a human, so because he wants to be able to talk to it. He notices that this creature is really, really smart. One of the funny parts of the show is when Boy Cavalier asks the sheep, because the sheep is being controlled by this Teocellus. He says all advanced creatures would know pi, 3.142, I think it is, right? So so everybody would know what pi is. So he says 3.14, what are the next digits? So that to me that's funny because he just says all advanced creatures would know that. I mean, we're an advanced species, and not every human knows what pi is. So it just so happens that by luck, when they were gathering creatures, they gathered one that was smart enough to know pi. That's kind of funny to me. But anyway, he wanted the TSLs to infect a human so that it could talk to him because Boy Cavalier was seeking a great conversation, whatever that would be. And he didn't think most people, including Dame Sylvia, would be able to have a good, intelligent conversation with him. I think that's the last slide I have. Yep. Yeah, there you go. So actually, I'm going to go back to that first slide, just make sure I had everybody's name correct here. Uh, Curly. I called her Jane. Curly. I think that was her real name, though. So it's Curly, not Jane. It's Curly. Okay, so Curly was Curly wanted to be Curly wanted to be Boy Cavalier's favorite. So she was the most loyal. But in the end, though, she was able to perform her duty along with along with the other hybrids and capture the cap. I think she caught the soldiers. Yeah, she caught the soldiers. So in the end, whereas we had the hybrids trapped in a cell, the hybrids they have actually White Cavalier, Kirsch, Adam, who's a not a hybrid, he's a synth. He's like number one for Boy Cavalier, but he may also be his father. It's kind of confusing because Boy Cavalier apparently killed his father, who was a drunk, and created the synth. I wonder if Adam was the synth he created at six. So he's in jail too, as is Morrow, and I think it's I'm missing. Oh, Dame Sylvia. I think that's it. Yeah, they're all in the cell together, and in the end, just to as the season one ends, Wendy says she wants to control the world. That's what her mission is, and at the end, there's a scene where she has two xenomorphs. The one that she befriended at first, that was the first xenomorph she befriended, and then another xenomorph that she also grew to love. They followed her like they were about to escape the island, and she was able to control the xenomorphs to do her bidding, whatever she needed to do. She was able to communicate with them, which was interesting, really, really interesting. She was the only one of the hybrids that could do that. But she ends up saying, "We're going to control the world," and she obviously has control of the xenomorph, so she can do a lot. So that leaves a lot open for the next season. And it also really scared Hermit, her brother, because he does not like that idea. All right, so that's it for my review. In terms of what would I give it, so I use this biscuit scale. Yeah, I like biscuits a lot, so I give it a biscuit scale from 1 to 10. Episode 5 really sucked in my view. It was just so it takes it down. Just looking at the series alone, if it didn't have episode 5, I'd probably give it like a 9, but that drops it down to like I'd say 7.5 out of 10. I'm a big Alien fan, so obviously I'm gonna love it. 7.5 out of 10 is good. I'm hoping next season will continue to build upon this. But remember, I think that the hybrids are destined to be some kind of superheroes because they're being set up in that way. And so that's just my take on it, my prediction. Thank you for anybody who watches this. And remember, subscribe. It all helps us out. And watch more YouTube videos. Oh, you subscribe to me, ask me to subscribe. I'll subscribe back. All right. Thank you. Bye.